Okay, hi guys. So I'm finally going to film the video on how to make this large art journal. This is the first art journal I ever made and the first one I ever painted in when I was taking a class from Tracy Bautista, who is a really great mixed media and graffiti artist. I will try to remember to post a link down below the video to her website. She makes a lot of her journals out of found materials and recycled objects. And I wanted to, when I took her first class, emulate that, and so I created this. I didn't know any better, and it's a little bit big. Not that I wouldn't do that again, but now I know what I did right and what I did wrong, so I'm going to review those things with you as we talk about this and we make another one. I'm going to make a smaller one. If you want to make one that's this big, it is... there's cardboard in the cover, and the cardboard is about 18 1/4 inches by 14 3/4. You'll need 2 pieces like that. And the canvas that covers the outside, if you measure all the way around from front to back, is almost 41 inches long. And it is 16 3/4 inches tall. You'll need 2 pieces of canvas and 2 pieces of cardboard to get started. I used I think this is Japanese stab binding technique. I put the holes through the canvas cover with eyelets, and I think it has 2 signatures, 2 really big signatures. I used a combination of papers, including watercolor paper, this is packing paper like you wrap your plates in when you're moving. This is just brown craft paper, and then file folders. So a few things about the paper before we get started making another one. Be conscious of what kind of papers you use and how they're going to react to mixed media or lots of wet media. This was my first one, so I wasn't really aware of those things. And the brown craft paper and the packing paper are thin. So anything you do on one side is going to bleed through to the other side, or there'll be some wrinkling and rippling. So if you really are a kind of person that drives crazy and you want everything to be really flat, don't put this kind of paper in there. You're going to be unhappy. I did frequently find with these thinner papers that I had to get started on my page with either an initial layer of clear gesso, a lot of abstract paint on the background, sometimes, and then clear gesso, or lots of collage, something to give the paper more thickness and weight, and something to absorb the wet media so that it wouldn't go through to the other side. I didn't mind on most of the pages about the wrinkles. They don't really bug me, but if you're, like I said, if you're the kind of person that drives crazy, then you're not going to want to use this thinner paper. Maybe practice on a few pieces of thinner paper before you put them in your journal and see how they're going to work for you. Alright, I am going to show you how to make one of these. I'm going to get my supplies together and I'll be right back. Okay, so here's a littler one that I made shortly after I made the other one. I did the same kind of binding, only I didn't go around the top and bottom edge, which I think you're supposed to when you do traditional Japanese stab binding. I just found that when I did the big one, that was kind of fussy and in my way. Because I put blank pages in it to start with. And I'm really not a kind of a gal following the you're supposed to rules. I kind of try to break them a lot. Sometimes unintentionally, not always. And I also didn't use eyelets on this one. I just have holes straight through the canvas. So whatever kind of a look you want is going to work fine. And in this one, instead of blank pages and signatures, this is single sheets that already have painted backgrounds. So I can just go through and add positive affirmations, drawings, quirky birds, whatever. And as you can hear by that noise, they're not waxed because I'm not done with the book. But yeah, they're all sticking together. I'm going to try waxing at them when I'm done. So anyway, I don't know how many pages this has in it. It's got quite a few. But it's made the same way as we're going to make the cover for the other one. So start with 2 pieces of cardboard. They can be any kind of cardboard from an old box. These are from my day job. They throw them away. They come perfectly cut like this, which is handy. So we're going to use these 2 little ones to make a book. These are 8 1/8 by about 8 inches. So you'll need 2 pieces of cardboard, and then you're going to need some fabric. Now, I usually have a lot of canvas laying around. This is just canvas or duck cloth from the fabric store. Natural colored, I prefer. I usually have a piece hanging around, and when I'm working on a project and I have extra paint, I start making marks on. Eventually, this is what becomes my journal covers. And here's some that's finished. Here's another one. I did this when I got back from Hawaii. I got these stencils in Hawaii. And then here's another one. So this is what I cut up and then make my journal covers out of. So you're going to want to add 1 inch for a seam allowance to the size of your cardboard all the way around. So we want to do 9 by 9 1/8. And then we also want to add some inches for a signature. So this little one is about 2 1/2. The big one is about 3. So you'll have to experiment. I usually just, take a whack at it. So I think I want my journal cover to be shorter, height-wise, and longer. So math is not my strong suit. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So my covers are going to be 8 1/8 times 2, so that's 16 1/4. Plus, we're going to add 2 inches for a spine. So actually, let's make it 2 1/2. So 16 1/4, 17, 18, and 3/4. Plus 1 inch. So 19 3/4. Better write that down. I'm going to forget. (19 3/4) piece long, and then high we want, this is 8, so we want 9 inches high. So cut 2 pieces of your fabric in 2 big rectangles that I'm going to cut these measurements, and I will be back. Okay, so now we have our 2 rectangles that are going to make up our cover. So before we do sewing or anything else, you want to decide, which piece is going to be your front or inside. I'm sorry, outside or inside. And if you want to do more decorations to the outside piece, this is the time to do it. If you're going to sew them on. You could add, bits of old lace, maybe scraps of ribbon, twine. I have an old file folder here that I found when I was cleaning. I do some fabric collage sometimes. These are some old pictures of my daughter. She's going to be horrified because she's 19 now, but she was a cute baby. She's a beautiful young woman. But anyway, I used some of these in fabric collage. These are just printed on cotton fabric that was ironed to freezer paper and then put through my HP printer, my DeskJet printer. And then once they come out, then I spray them with 2 or 3 coats of matte fixative. and then peel them from the paper, and you're good to go. They're not washable. They're slightly water resistant, but I really wouldn't get them wet, because then that happens. But they're great in fabric collage, and I have all different ones. So if you wanted to add a whole piece of one of these or a small piece of one of these to your outside cover, this is the time to do it. That's me and my mom. I was about 3 months old. So this is the time to do it. It could be maybe a little piece of your artwork. These are just some watercolor doodles I did a long time ago. And I printed on fabric. I've used them in collage a lot, so you could add, you know, a little one of these to your cover if you wanted. I might actually add one of those. There's one. I actually used the black and white version of her on my business card. So now's the time to decide if you're going to do that, and if you are, to pick out what you want to use and put it aside. I'm going to break out the sewing machine, and we'll come back and we'll start putting our cover together. Okay, be back. Okay, I decided on putting my dragonflies on the cover. I have a piece of this pretty blue velvet ribbon. This is actually off a gift bag. It was a gift bag handle. And then I have a bunch of this antique lace. So I'm going to sew this to the cover first before I do anything else. And I'm going to just eyeball it. I don't like to use pins. Make sure you don't need any special sewing skills. You only have to know how to turn it on, do a straight stitch, and back stitch. Really, that's it. You need a denim needle on your machine, which I have on my machine most of the time, because most of the time I'm working with canvas or denim. I don't really do any dressmaking anymore. You can straight stitch or zigzag these on, but those aren't complicated stitches, they're basic stitches, and there is no wrong way. So here we go. It doesn't even have to be straight. And if you like the messy, grungy look, go around it a couple times and intentionally go crooked. When you turn the corner, make sure your needle's in the down position. It's going to help prevent getting big loops of thread on your fabric. I'm going to try not to cut my threads, so I'm going to end down in the lower corner because that's where I want to add my ribbon. I'm going to go straight across. Okay, now I'm going to add a piece of this lace. I know you can't see too much about what I'm doing, but I'm going to show you in a minute when I'm done. So to do this, I'm going to need to lift up my presser foot. So I want to put it in underneath. When you get to the end and you're done doing your fabric collage, just remember to backstitch. Now's the time to cut everything off. Cut all your loose pieces. Cut your threads at your starting point. And now we have something like that. I like that. It's a little puckery right now, but once we get our cardboard and stuff in there, it's not going to be. Okay, so now we need to figure out where we're going to put our cardboard. So we're going to put our right sides of our fabric together. Take one of your pieces of cardboard. And you know, I have one piece that's slightly bigger than the other. I'm not too concerned about it, but I am going to do this initial sewing from the other side because I want to make sure I catch all the edges. So I'm going to lay my two pieces of cardboard down. Make sure I have them going the right way since they're slightly different sizes. Let's see. Make sure you leave yourself a quarter to a half an inch all the way around. Make sure it's even. Lay it out evenly. I'm going to pick up the iPad so you might get a little dizzy here so you can see. So if you can see, lay it out on the fabric. There you go. And then trace around them with a pencil. I just use a mechanical pencil. Okay, when you sew these, you don't want to sew directly on the line. You want to sew to the outside of the line a little bit. You want your pocket that you're going to create right now to be a little bit bigger rather than smaller. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble getting the cardboard in. So we're going to make our pocket now, and we're going to sew down one short end across the bottom and up the other side. We're going to leave the whole top open. And we're going to sew up the these two middle pencil lines to create our spine, to create two pockets to put our cardboard in. So I'm going to do that now. Oops. Sorry. I'll try to edit this out. I'm sorry, you guys. Okay. So try to sew to the outside of your pencil line by like at least 1/8 of an inch. Remember when you turn your corners to make sure your needle's in the down position. Now I should say here that you'll notice on my other journal covers that I left the raw edges out. I don't mind a grungy look like that. If you want to do that, then you should do this with wrong sides together. So that when you're finished sewing, you don't have to turn anything right side out. This time I'm going to try something new, so we'll see how it turns out. It might not turn out. I might have to rip it out, so we'll see. Trim your threads. And then we're going to do the spine. I'm going to leave my spine, I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch outside the pencil line because I am going to turn it right side out and I want to make sure I have enough room. And I don't care about having a huge giant signature. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end. so now we're gonna cut our corners. Oh, that's wrong. See, I'm already wrong. So you can't do the spine before you turn it right side out. Alright, I'm going to rip out some stitches, and I'm going to turn it right side out, and I'll be back. I got my stitches ripped out from what I did wrong. So I'm going to turn my big pocket right side out. Just a little. Poke out your corners. I use, if you saw my other video, you know I use a knitting needle, which I always have around because I do knit. I like to use this fat one. What is this? This is an 11 because the point is not too pokey. But this is canvas anyway, so it's pretty sturdy stuff, but just be careful. You don't want to poke through your fabric. If you're scared of doing this part, then do it with the raw edges sticking out. All my other journals are with the raw edges sticking out. I didn't try to hide the raw edges. I don't mind the look of the raw edges. I like when they fray. The basic procedure is the same. I just didn't do this part. Okay, so now we have our rectangle, big pocket. And you'll notice on the little one, so here's what I'm talking about. On the little one, I left the raw edges. And on the big one too. So you can do it either way. If you are the kind of person who wants to press this flat, don't, because unless you've used fabric paint, because like on my fabric, this is just regular acrylic paint, so it would probably come off and stick to your iron. I don't know how it would react, and I wouldn't take a chance. If you really feel the desperate need to press it, definitely use a pressing cloth. Okay, so I'm going to put my cardboard in, fit it all the way down into the corner. And up against the edge, as far as it'll go. Okay, it's right there, I can feel it. So I'm going to, with the cardboard in, I'm going to stitch as close to that as I can get, right up against it. But I'm not going to sew all the way to the edge because we want to be able to tuck that top edge in when we're done and try to stitch it down. So let's see how it goes. I don't know. We just want to hold the cardboard in where it's supposed to be. I'm going to stop a couple inches from the top. And do the same thing with the other piece of cardboard. Now this other piece of cardboard won't fit in my machine, so I'm going to have to mark it with a pencil. Where I want the stitching to be, and then put the cardboard in. Just mark it lightly with the pencil on the inside, and it won't show anyways. Okay. Maybe you just want to use cardboard and paper and you don't want to go through all of this to make your journal cover. That's okay too. So let's put our cardboard back in. Fits right in like a glove. Okay. The other way. Yeah. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to turn down the edges, and I either want to stitch or glue them down. I think I'm going to try to stitch through the cardboard and everything. And you're going to stitch all the way across the top to close it. Now, if you decided to go with the raw edges, then you're good to go. You don't need to turn anything under and stitch it. Just stitch right across the top, right up against your cardboard. Okay, I'm going to stitch this down. I'm not going to fuss with it on camera. I'm going to stitch it down and I'll be back. I said I was going to stitch this down and then I'd be back, but I lied. Okay, so it does work just sewing it all the way through the cardboard. Just go slow. When you have to stop to reposition your fabric, because I don't have it pinned or anything, that would just make it way too complicated. Make sure you stop with your needle, again, in the down position, so that your stitches don't all go cattywampus on you, and you don't end up with loops of fabric and places where you've missed stitching things together. And just don't go, you don't need to go fast, just go slow. And stitch all the way across to the other side. Make sure that you back stitch at the beginning and the end, so your stitches don't unravel. And do that, and then we'll be back and we'll start making the signatures. Alright, I'll be back. So here's my cover. I think that turned out pretty well. I did stitch all the way around after I got the top closed. Your stitching doesn't have to be straight. You can use a combination of straight and zigzag, whatever stitches you're comfortable with on your machine. And we're ready to go. We're ready to make signatures. Once you get it closed, if you're doing it this way, once you get it closed, you're not going to be able to stitch the spine up all the way to the top. That's okay. You probably could stitch it a little bit closer than I did, if this is going to bug you. Once you get the whole book together, honestly, it's not going to even show, so I'm really not too concerned. Alright, I'm going to put my sewing machine away so that I have room to get some papers out and make some signatures, and I will be back. Okay, so I've pulled out, we're going to put the cover aside. I've pulled out of my collection of stuff some envelopes, colored ones, white ones. I have some paper, it's like a mixed media, it's a thin paper. I have, this is a roll, brand new roll, thought I'd try it in here. This is, it looks like brown craft paper, it's not. This is from the hardware store. It's masking paper. It's kind of thin. It's probably going to wrinkle like heck. I'm not too worried. I don't really care about the wrinkles. When I did the big one, I wanted some of the papers to have torn edges and to be uneven, and so we're going to just do that. I don't care. You can even throw in, if you have like accounting paper, notebook paper, file folders. So collect some different kinds of papers, and then I'll show you how I made my signatures and how I got them in there, and I'll be back. Okay, so another thing I'm going to include is I have this is packing paper. It came in a shipment of stuff I got. I flattened it out and I painted on it. Some of this is probably spray paint from before I got sick from work with asthma. That's a long story we won't get into, but I can't spray paint anymore. The fumes make me have an asthma attack. But I have some of this paper left, and so I think I'm going to use a piece in the journal, and I really like this piece here, so I think I'm going to pull that out. And I lay all my different papers out in piles. Let's see. So I'm going to tear this one. I don't want to waste too much of this painted paper because I can't really spray paint anymore, and I have to email my niece and have her do it for me, which I just now thought of, and that's actually a good idea, Megan, if you're watching this. I can send you the packing paper. So I'm going to tear off a few sheets. I tend to like things in even numbers. When I was a kid, they didn't test for OCD, so when we went through testing with our daughter, who does not have it, by the way, we answered all the questions no for her, but my husband funnily, he thought was funny, said, honey, Becca doesn't have any of these symptoms, but you have all of them. So yeah, well, anyway. So things have to be even numbers. So I'm going to tear off at least 4. Again, I don't care too much if they're all the exact same size, and I don't care too much if the edges are kind of frayed. That's fine. I'm not going to throw these little bits away, even though like this one doesn't have much paint on it. It does have a little bit, so I'll be able to use it in something. I'll fold it up and put it back in my box. Put the ruler away. This is a quilting ruler. It comes in really handy when you're making journals and bookbinding. Okay, so we're going to start making our signatures. And I'm just looking at this brown paper, and it may be actually too big. I may have to rip it down, but we'll see as we go. Because, oh yeah, it's too big. We're going to have to rip that down. I can tell you already. Let's do that before we do anything else. So when you're making one that's this little, you got to be aware of, you know, I can't do it this way because look how much bigger the pages would be than my journal. So I don't care if they all don't come out to the edge. That's fine. When I did the big one, they don't all come out to the edge. They're all different lengths. But I don't want it to be taller than my journal. So let's rip this down. This roll was really inexpensive from the hardware store. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was fairly cheap. And I think I had a coupon because that's what I do. So let's rip these down. And I have 4 of them, so that's going to immediately satisfy my need for even numbers. And in this case, this is just plain inexpensive paper, so I'm going to throw these scraps away. Now the other thing I want to use is a full file folder. I have this one. Either way, it's going to be too big. So I think I want to use it this way. So we need to cut that down. Okay. Yep, that's better. And then we have this paper. So let's make sure it's the right height. And it's not, so let's cut it down to, I'm cutting everything to about 8 inches, more or less. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to build our signatures, and like I said, I've got my paper in different piles. So I can grab one piece from each. I'm going to fold everything in half. Can you see me? Okay, so I'm going to fold everything in half. If you need to, use your bone folder. Get a nice even crease. Get everything folded in half, including your envelopes. Making sure that you're folding them. Okay, so your book cover is this way, your paper is this way. Don't fold it this way. Fold it this way. Okay? Alright, do that to everything and we'll be back. Okay, for this next step you're going to need all your folded papers. You're going to need some clips, bulldog clips, these kind of clips. I have a bunch of clips, so whatever you have. And we're going to start building our signatures. So I'm going to start with my white paper and I'm going to open the fold. And I'm going to start layering in my different kinds of paper in just any random order. I'm not that compulsive. Well, I kind of am, but I'll pretend I'm not. So we're going to just do a random order that's not really random. I think I'm going to try to do 2 signatures. I don't know, we'll see how that works. I don't know if this is big enough for 2. Might just do 1 big signature. Make sure all of your folds are really tight up against each other. Fold it back in half and then clip it shut. So here's our book. Oh, and I definitely can fit another signature in there, so we're going to make another one. I don't have any more file folders, but that's okay. I'm going to just use up what we have. Layering like we did the last one. Okay. Make sure it's all tight up against each other. Fold it in half and clip it shut. Now you want to take your 2 signatures, line up the folds, clip it all together. So you want to get it, because once you think you have enough signatures, you have enough paper to put in your album. Line it up with your spine. And you want it to be like this one is. I don't want so much paper that when I'm pinching it like this, my thumb is on the cardboard. I want to be just on the fabric. And you want to kind of have it even. And then you want to move your clip very carefully to the spine. Make sure your paper's pushed all the way in. Make sure the front and back are about the same place. And then move your clip to the spine and move it to the outer corners. Like that. Then before we do anything else, just open it and make sure that you're okay with how it looks on the inside. I'm totally okay with this. I know there's a lot of cover that's available, but that's okay. I'm alright with that. I might even actually at the end put a closure there. Yeah, that leaves plenty of opportunity for stuff. Tipping in pages, you have room to tip in pages and add longer pages. Okay, so once we get to this point, the next thing you're going to need is a really sharp pokey tool, or I use a drill. It's easier. So I'm going to get my drill, and I'm going to get my drill bit and get it all set up, and we'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so I have my drill, and I'm going to get out a drill bit. I usually use like the 1/4 inch, usually. Honestly, I just look and see what one, it looks like it's big enough for what I want to do. And I'll get a block. So I have these little wooden blocks. They're from the thrift store. I didn't pay more than $2 for any of them. I don't know what they're supposed to be for. Maybe for cheese. I don't use them for that. When I see one, I do buy it because I use it for when I'm drilling or flattening bottle caps. Or you can see from this one, it's well used. So I'm going to just eyeball where I want the holes. I put at least 2 holes in the spine. So I'm going to try to face this towards, there we go, so you guys can see. So we're going to drill right up against the cardboard, as far in on the spine as we can. That will, besides clamping it together and pushing everything towards the middle, drilling it up towards the cardboard is going to ensure that when we bind it, we catch everything. What is that? I don't even know. I said I was going to eyeball it, but that's going to make me crazy. I admit it. Okay, so about 2 inches from the top, about 2 inches from the bottom. Make a pencil mark. Like a little cross. It doesn't have to be exact, but if I don't have it sort of in the same spot, right spot, I'm going to be upset with myself. The pencil marks aren't going to show when we're done, so it doesn't matter if you don't get it right on there. Okay, so just drill all the way through. There we go. I like to go back through the other side just to ensure that I have a good hole. Nice clean hole. There we go. Like that. I'm going to do the other one. Okay, now we have our holes. Now we can bind it. So I have my box here of book binding supplies. Wait a minute, let me get rid of the shavings. Okay, So I keep all my bookbinding supplies in a box together when I come across fibers from my yarn stash or whatever that I want to use. I think on this one, you know, I got this little bag. This is actually from Amazon. It's a sampler pack of, what is it called? It's cotton cording. It's for like cooking, baking. It was really nice because they had this sampler pack. Let's see. From the Twinery, but I got this sampler pack on Amazon. I'll try to remember to post a link to it in the comments below. But I have all these different colors. I'm wondering if I want to use some of that on this book. Let me decide what fibers I want to use and get my needles out. Make sure you have bookbinding needles. They're pretty big. Get your cording, yarn, embroidery floss. Whatever you have will work. If you have a collection like me, spend a few minutes and go through and pick out what you really want to use and come back and then we'll bind our book. Okay, I decided as usual when I make these things, I usually use a combination of fibers. This is some, I guess, ribbon yarn. It came on a skein from the yarn department. You could also just cut up some cotton fabric that you have. You generally want 3 times the length of your spine for your yarn. I'm not going to go above a top and the bottom. I'm going to just bind it here. And I'm going to combine it with this bakery twine that I got on Amazon. As soon as I find the end somewhere. Maybe. Oh, found it. Okay, so again, 3 times is usually a good length. I think those will look nice together on there. And I'm still thinking if I want, you know, I'm going to add one more thing. So I still have a big giant wad of this old lace. So I'm going to add some of that because I think that would be pretty. And it's on the cover. And yes, I know it's in a big wad. Okay. So now I'm going to thread all of these through one needle. That's going to be a trick. Maybe. Maybe not. Let's see. Woohoo! Got it. Okay. If you're going to do multiple fibers like this and you can't get them all through, unfortunately you're going to have to do them one at a time. Alright. Let's see if I remember how I did this last time. So I want my knot to be in the front, just like I wanted my knots to be in the front with this one. And I added extra knots because I wanted to have extra fibers, and I might still do that on this. I have this yarn, which is fuzzy, and I have this, which is feathers on wire, so we might add some of those to the front. So I want to go through the front to the back, leave some in the front. I'm going to go back around. Try not to catch your fibers, which is really hard. You don't need to go fast. You're going to have to spend a few minutes manipulating all your fibers. Okay, so then we want to go up the front. There we go. root back through the first hole. This is when it gets hard, and this is why I usually use a big drill bit hole. Cool. Sorry about the funny faces. There, right. Sometimes it gets stuck. There we go. This is exactly what I was talking about, so it's stuck on the ribbon. So we're going to pull it out. Let's see from the bottom. Okay. There we go. Okay. Pull everything tight. And I'm sure this is not the right way to do this kind of binding. This is just my way. This is the way I did my other books. This is, I'm sure there's different ways. I know there's different ways to do things. Caught on something again. This is what happens. So I don't mind that. I don't mind having to fuss with it because I like the look of the multiple fibers, but if it bothers you, drives you crazy, then just do one at a time. Okay, so now you have to go back through one more time because we want this tail to end up in the front, and we also want to wrap this part right here like we did up here. And yes, I know that's asking a lot. So you want to pull, before you do this, make sure everything's pulled and tight as it can be. That'll make your job easier. See? Okay. Now take your needle off, and you have, your book is sort of bound. These are loose. So what I did on the other ones was I tied it in a knot around this piece to bind it off before I added any decorative feathers or anything. And I'm always the paranoid sort, so I always do at least 2 knots. And leave your clips on or clamps on this whole time while you're doing this. Don't take them off. You don't want things to shift around. You don't want to miss any pages or any of that. Okay. So then we have this, and basically now this is bound. So now you can take your clips off. And I think I am going to add some I'm going to trim this because that's a little bit long. Okay. Let's see what I have in here. you know what? I like these blue feathers. Blue and purple. So I'm going to just cut this. This is on wire. This was just a craft trim. I got it from Harvest Imports. You have to have a wholesale license, resale number, tax ID number, something like that to order from them. But they do have fun trims like this. So then I just thread it around. Kind of going around the knot on the top. And I'm going to pull it tight. Go around the knot on the bottom. Do the same thing. Wrap the other one the opposite way. And then send one underneath the knot on the top, one of your loose ends of wire, and one around the other side. And twist them together. I'm going to add this feather back in that came off. Oops. I'm just going to wrap it around the feather. Okay, and I'm going to add a little bit of tacky glue as soon as I find my tacky glue. It's going to dry clear. It's going to keep everything in place where I want it to be. Okay, so there we go. And I did add some more folder pages. I found some, so I added some bigger, longer pages. We've got 3 signatures and different kinds of paper. So we're ready to go. So that's how I made my giant art journal. There's a video flip of that journal and all the pages inside of it after I got it done on here on YouTube. I'll try to remember to post a link down below. Have some fun, make your own. I would like to see them if you do. You can find me all over Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and of course YouTube. So make some journals, have some fun, do some painting, and I'll see you soon. Bye!